What's up everybody, this is Tyler here with Savvy Hut Tutorials. Here to bring you yet another Photoshop Friday. Today we will be talking about how to create different colored eyes. And yes, I used my cat for this particular example, but you can do it on humans. So not only did I add the color to my cat's eyes, but I did make them pop a bit more. You'll see here, that's kind of what they look like in the picture. I made them pop a little bit ridiculously here. And without further ado, let's get this tutorial started.
Photoshop Friday.
As always, the first thing we will do is go up to File and New. We will create a new document here, and let's actually make that 1920 by 1080, and we'll set the resolution to 300. I will say, if I am moving a little quick and this is your first time in Photoshop, I do have a tutorial set up specifically for beginners that breaks down everything that I do, and click OK. As you can see, we've got a 1920 by 1080 white canvas area. And the first thing you will need, and I will not provide this for you, is a picture. And again, you can use this on humans if you've got, you know, like, I don't know, a cool picture of some girl you're trying to impress and you want to, you know, change out the color eyes and be like, look what I did for you, you know, and that kind of a thing. Totally cool. Maybe gray out the background. I'll show you how to do that really quick at the end as well. It's very simple. So the first thing I will do is go up to my select tool, left click that, make sure it's selected, hit Control A to copy everything. You'll see the dotted line going across the screen here, the little ants marching across. Let's hit Control X on a PC. That'll cut that bad boy out. And we will go to our cat eyes that we created here. Remember, it's a 1920 by 1080. The picture I had was a much larger than that because I shot it with a Nikon D4 camera, which had very high resolution on it. So you can see it looks like the picture looks all messed up. I'm going to zoom out by holding Control and pushing the minus sign, and then hit Control T to transform this image. In order to keep the ratio the same, I'm going to hold Shift and hover over to where I get this double arrow on one of the corners here. Left click and drag it in as far as I can without going in. If I go too far in, you'll see that white space start to show. I don't want that, so let me just place it right about there. It doesn't have to be perfect, but I just don't want any white space. Now I'll hit Enter to apply that effect. I'll hit plus to zoom back in. With anybody who is familiar with photography, you will know the rule of thirds. There's 3 separate sections here and then 2 lines in the middle, kind of like a tic-tac-toe board. You want your subject to be on one of those lines, and you want one of your PowerPoints to be where the main focus is. And I'll show you exactly what I'm talking about in like 2 seconds. Let me drag my kitty cat up just a bit so I can capture more of his whiskers. It's kind of interesting. Don't want to cut the ear off though, so I'll keep him right about there. And to give you an idea of what the rule of thirds looks like, I will actually click on my little crop tool here, left click, slide, drag it across. You'll see that I've got 3 sections going each way, so 9 separate blocks. And his little nose is on one of the PowerPoints at the bottom, and the top of his center of his head's kind of at the top. It's not perfect, but for the purpose of this tutorial, it's going to work. Okay? I'm going to hit Enter just to apply that. So now my image is 1920 by 1080 and it's aligned the way I want it to look. And you'll see I have layer 1 over here in my layer section. Let me double click that and we'll just call that our main photo. Now let's create another layer because we want to keep that main photo the same. We don't want the picture to alter too much from the main photo. We just want to add some effects. So let me go on up here to Layer, and you can go over to New and create a new layer. That's one way to do it. Now, one thing I do recommend is learning the hotkeys. So Shift Control N for a PC will create that next layer, or I can just left click here and you'll see it's calling the layer. Let's call this layer the eyes. We'll make our eyes green here, so we'll just do green eyes to let us know. Again, the name of this layer does not affect anything as far as the way it looks, just organizes things. I'll hit Enter. You'll see it's completely blank. So what I will do is go back and make sure my main photo is selected, hit Control A and then Control C to copy it. If you're on a PC again, hover over my green eyes and then hit Control V. You'll see it pasted that photo right in there. Even if I delete the main photo or close the eyeball here, you're still going to see green eyes. If I close both, you'll see nothing. So now I've got my green eyes section here. We will go down to our little mask layer. You'll see it's kind of a gray background with a white circle. Left click that. It will create a mask that will be on top of it. So any effects that are put into this mask will affect the picture on this top layer, green eyes. What I'm actually going to do on this green eyes layer is double click and you'll see my layer style pop up here. And just to make things easy for the tutorial to see what's going on, I'm going to apply a color overlay to the entire picture. You'll see here, it pretty much smothered the entire picture in a solid red color. So the first thing we want to do is go into our blend mode, change that from normal to soft light. So I'll left click that. You'll see it now applies the same red color, but it's a different blend mode. It's not a solid red, it's more of a light color. So what I also did was change this red to, if you left click on the red square there, change it to a green color. So I'll click OK, and I will click OK again to apply that. So now I've got the effects in my layers section for the color overlay of green. You'll see here in my layers section that there is a slightly visible dotted line going around my picture of my cat. That means that it's selected within this layer. If I want to switch over to my mask, let me left click on that, and you'll see this slightly visible dotted line switches over to my mask. So now I've got that selected. From here, I'm going to go up to my eraser tool, left click, and make sure you've got the eraser, basic eraser selected. I'm going to increase this to, let's do a 60 and just really crank that up a lot so we can get a lot done more quickly. So about 400, 401 pixels, somewhere in there. And I'm going to just make sure my white foreground color is selected and erase. Just really start taking this stuff down. Boom. Now let me make a smaller brush. We'll do about 60. Really rough area here. Okay, so now you can kind of see the beginning. I'm going to hit Control plus to get a little bit further in here. I've erased a lot of what I wanted and a little bit more. So in order to get that back, I will go over and make sure my foreground color is set to black. So remember, it was white before, now set it to black. And what that does is it reverses anything you erased. Before I do that, let me switch back into more of a softer brush. I'll pick something like 28 and it'll be feathered out around the ends. And I'll go back over to my eye and just get as close as I can to the edges. And I'm left clicking, just drawing it back in basically. There it is, something like that. Same thing with the other eye. I'm just going to draw as close as I can to it back in. And I'm actually going to go back, switch my swatch again, and with the feathered eraser selected, erase just a bit more around the edges here. It's close enough for this. The next thing I will do is actually go back to my main photo. If you'll see, he's got a little dot right there. That's not a big deal, but let's pretend like it's some kind of blemish on a model or something that you're working with. Again, that's just a little dot that's in his eye. It was actually there whenever I took the picture. What I can do is go up to my little patch tool here, left click on that, and you'll see I've got this little rope lasso kind of looking tool going on here. All I want to do is circle that dot that I've got there that's just annoying me, and then hover inside so you can see when you're outside it looks like this. When you're inside that selected area, it turns into a different shape. I'm going to left click, hold it down, and drag it over. You'll see I'm actually going to blend it in with an area that looks similar to it but doesn't have a dot, and I'll let go. And you'll see there is still remnants of the dot, and what that is the layer above it. So I'll left click that and go back into my mask tool and just erase it. I'm not going to worry about blending anything in. So just left click a couple times to get that going there. Okay, that's good enough. I'll hit Control and use my minus key to zoom right back out here. So there's my cat with green eyes. The next thing I want to do is go to my main photo, and this time instead of creating a new layer and then pasting the picture in the layer, we're just going to hold Control for a PC and hit J. And what J did was it duplicated the entire layer. So now it says, here's main photo, here's main photo copy. Let's double click in here and we'll just title this Sharpen. So this will be our Sharpen layer. Left click and drag it above the green eyes section. you'll kind of see everything goes away. It looks like we just erased everything we did. It didn't. If you turn off the layer, there's the green eyes. Woo! Next thing I'll do with the sharpened layer selected is go up to my filter and then go down to other and high pass. I'll left click that. You'll see a dialog box pops up asking me how much of a radius I want. And you can kind of zoom around and see what the effect's going to do to it. I will leave this at 5 pixels. The higher you crank it up, basically the sharper it gets, and vice versa. So I think about 5 pixels makes it not too dramatic, but enough to where it really pops a lot. And I'll click OK. So now this entire layer has a high pass applied to it. And what that's going to do is really catch all the angles and just make them stand out a lot more with a lot more contrast. So in order to make everything come back and sort of bring us towards the end of this tutorial, let's go over here while the sharpen layer is selected to where it says normal. Now this is also the blend mode that we talked about earlier. It just doesn't say blend mode until you hover over it and it says set the blending mode for the layer. Pretty self-explanatory after that. Left click, you're going to see a drop down menu come up. And all we're going to need is overlay. So left click on overlay. And now you see it brought the green back in and it made the entire layer pop. So you may not notice a difference until you go back to the eye of the sharpen layer we just created and left click. You can see it looks a lot different. It really makes everything pop. If you've got a horribly fuzzy picture, this is a good thing to kind of fix it up a bit. I wouldn't rely on this. I would rely on taking a very sharp, crisp picture because this might look kind of cool, but you don't want the entire thing to be this edgy. This kind of an effect on the entire picture might look cool on a cat, but it looks kind of weird on people because it really brings out even the smallest of flaws. So the next thing I want to do is actually create a mask for my sharpen layer. So I'll go back down here to my mask tool, left click, and you'll see it applied, the mask. And I will actually erase everything except for around the eyes because my goal here is to make the eyes pop. First thing I want people to notice is how ridiculous the eyes look on this cat. So I will left click, create, just erase pretty much everything. And if you'll notice in the mask tool, it's showing me what I'm erasing. So the black means it's not going to be on the layer and the white means it will be. Let me do this. Just get rid of all this craziness. Grab a smaller brush. And you don't have to be super specific with this. It's gonna not be able to tell that much. All right. So that's just making his eyes pop a bit. So here's what it looked like when it was off, and here's what it looks like on. So it looks really crazy on it. It really brings out every tiny little detail that I caught in his eye with that picture. So the first thing you look at is, whoa, look at that cat's eyes, man. All right. So now you can see we've just got the eyes. In order to make a cool black and white or grayed out picture, a lot of people do that grayscale junk, but all that does is remove everything. It removes all the detail of the picture. So we don't want to do that. We'll actually go to image, go down to adjustments and hit up the black and white. Okay. That's going to give me a default grayed out grayscale look. That's trash. Don't keep it like this. So let me go over to default. You can really get into the nitty gritty and adjust it, but there are also a bunch of little presets in here. And if you know the main colors in your picture, it'll give you a better idea of what filter to use. But you can also just scroll through and see what looks coolest. So let me click blue filter, and that looks crazy. Let me scroll down, darken, green filter, crazy, crazy. Okay, interesting, crazy, weird. Okay, all right. So my favorite was I think I'll just use darker filter for this one. And I'll click OK. So that's what it would look like with a grayed out background. Again, if you just hold Control Alt Z, you can go back and hit Control Z back and forth, kind of see what you like. Other than that though, that's pretty much the end product that I showed you at the beginning of this tutorial. If you have any questions or comments about what I did, definitely feel free to leave them in the comment section below. And what I usually do is I compile a bunch of the comments and questions on my previous tutorials, and that's how I create the next tutorial. So definitely feel free to leave your thoughts below. And if you learned something from this tutorial, please give me a thumbs up and give me a subscribe. All right, guys. Bye. I'll go ahead and show you exactly what we'll be creating in the end and quickly go through Create It, explain what I'm doing, and how you can create the same effect. All right, here it goes.